from the description of the video. Carolina Panthers at Atlanta Falcons. These Panthers are 7-10, 2-6 on the road at the Falcons. 7-10, 6-3 at home last year. We're at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. Let's talk about the Panthers. Win total is at 7.5, juiced heavily to the under. To win the NFC South, they're plus 400. To win the NFC, they're plus 3,300. And to win the Super Bowl, they are 66-1. Let's take a look at the line history here for this one to get us going. NFC South action. This total has been dropping and dropping and dropping. We are sitting at 40 right now at Pinnacle. Most other books are at 39.5. This is 40, juice to the under at minus 115. The total opened up at 43. From a point spread perspective, move over here. We are sitting now with the Falcons minus 3.5. There's an enormous amount of love in the futures market for these Atlanta Falcons. They opened up at minus 3. They're now at minus 3.5. Let's go.
Is that a Pinnacle opener?
That is the Pinnacle opener. Yes. All these openers will be Pinnacle openers. This was on May 12th. It opened up at 3 here. And the plus 3 immediately at Pinnacle. I guess not immediately. I guess it did. You know what? It didn't really start moving heavily towards the Falcons until July. Let's move over to the cash flow here for this one. Give me a second to pull it up. For the cash, we have 55% of the tickets and 91% of the cash on the under. You know, I get it. It makes sense. It's moved too far, I believe, at this point for me to want to jump on. 49% of the tickets and 87% of cash are on the Falcons. A ton of love for these Falcons. But let's talk about the Panthers first. They come into 2023 with a new coach in Frank Reich and a new QB1 and number 1 overall pick out of Alabama, Bryce Young. There was thought that Reich may go with Andy Dalton in this game, but he has confirmed that Bryce Young is the starter. Last year, the Panthers' passing attack was very weak. I do not see that changing this year. Last year, unbelievably, Panthers quarterbacks threw 16 touchdown passes and 13 interceptions. And where are the stud skill players for Bryce Young? DJ Moore was part of the trade package to the Bears for the number 1 overall pick. They brought in running back Miles Sanders, wide receiver Adam Thielen, wide receiver DJ Shark. They have Terrace Marshall Jr. They drafted wide receiver Jonathan Mingo in the second round out of Ole Miss. They have Hayden Hurst at tight end. We saw what he did last year. It wasn't much. 2 touchdowns in 13 games for a very dangerous Bengals offense. This offensive line is very good. And E.J. Avero comes in as the new defensive coordinator from the Broncos. There were suitors around the league. The Vikings wanted E.J. He is immediately moving the defense to 3-4 from 4-3. We saw what that move did with the Vikings last year. Their defense was atrocious. And do they have the players to pull off the 3-4? Is the big question. Avero was on the Rams in 2017 when they moved from the 4-3 under Greg Williams to the 3-4 with Wade Phillips. And he's made it work before. And this is a talented defense, strong pass rushers in Brian Burns and Derek Brown. Talk to me about your thoughts on these Carolina Panthers week 1 at the Falcons.
So I need more information on the Panthers to be able to make any type of educated guess. I just have a gut feeling they're tanking. I mean, it kind of feels like they mortgage their short-term future for Bryce Young, right? To trade up, they traded away a lot of assets to get Bryce Young. And he's a rookie, and it's hard for rookies with his size and his package to be successful, especially their first year in the NFL. Now, maybe he's an outlier, right? Maybe he's an outlier, but usually quarterbacks with his size and his build don't cut it in the NFL for too long. Now, in saying that, he has looked pretty good from what I saw in the preseason, which wasn't a lot, right? We don't get a big sample when we're watching preseason, so don't put too much weight into that. But they're awful in the secondary. This is just not a team I'm looking to back, especially early in the season. I need more information, Jimmy.
I hear that. But I tell you what, I'm having a real struggle figuring out why there's so much love for the Falcons. A real struggle. And seeing Dennis Garcia confident on Carolina, saying it's at +3.5 is an easy play. I love their defense. I love their coach. I love their quarterback. I find this very difficult to understand all this love for them. This win total has fired from 7.5 at a pick'em up to 8.5, a juice -125 to the over. To win the NFC South, they're +220. To win the NFC, they're +2,200. To win the Super Bowl, they're +6,000. Back-to-back 7 and 10 seasons under Arthur Smith. He begins his third campaign as a Falcons head coach, and I like him. I like Arthur Smith. I think he's a very good coach. Desmond Ridder gets a full season as QB1. Did we see enough of him in that 4-game stint? He didn't throw a touchdown until week 18 against the Bucs, who are resting all their players. 2 touchdowns in 4 games against a team that was clearly not trying. He's supposed to be a dual threat. In 3 of those 4 games he started, he ran for less than 10 yards. Yeah, he's got an electric wide receiver in Drake London, who's coming off an impressive rookie season. And it will help him a lot if tight end Kyle Pitts can bounce back from a season cut short due to MCL tear. But he didn't look that good before he got hurt. 28 catches in 10 games last year. It was a far cry from the rookie season that saw him with 68 receptions for 1,026 yards. Their running attack could be extremely strong. It's very possible that this running group is very good. Bijan Robinson, 8th overall out of Texas. Tyler Algier backing him up. Multi-purpose back Cordero Patterson. They have a very good offensive line that's all returning. But their defense was awful last year. 29th in EPA allowed per play. Their pass rush generated a league low 14.6% of opponents' dropbacks, resulted in 21 sacks. Ryan Nielsen comes over from the Saints to be the new defensive coordinator. He was the co-defensive coordinator and defensive line coach for a very strong Saints defense. Their defensive front, Calais Campbell, Grady Jarrett, David Onyemata. They have the second easiest schedule in the league. There's parts that I like, but I can't wait to hear your thoughts on the Falcons and if you're backing them in the futures market or here this week.
Sure. Yeah, so this line at 3.5, I had this line at 2.5 based on my power ratings. The Falcons were an interesting team last year. The public clearly perceived this team as bums last year. They were plus 3,500 to win the division. Now they're down to plus 210, or they were down to plus 210. But this team did have some life. They were 7-10 on the season, but they were 6-3 at home. Now of their 10 losses, 8 of them were by 1 possession. And how did they do that? Like Jimmy was talking about, because of this dominant run game. This was the best run blocking offensive line in the league. And there's something behind. That's extreme value. That's a very valuable thing to have and to be able to lean on. And it doesn't look like they're going to rotate away from that this year, as they drafted Bijan Robinson, who is supposedly God's gift to earth. I think the NFL might be a little bit different level than he's played at, but a lot of people are really high on Bijan. I understand why, right? So I don't want to downplay that, but offense, I think they're going to be above average. Desmond Ridder, I still think there's a lot to be found out about him, but he didn't look very promising, at least from what I seen last year. But I didn't watch a lot of Atlanta Falcon football towards the end of last season as well. So keep that in mind. But the defense, to Jimmy's point, how can you back a team? Let me give you the power rankings per PFF. Defensive line, 27th. Pass rush, 31st. Linebackers, 28th. Secondary, 23rd. And they have not one cornerback inside the top 50 cornerbacks in the league. That to me it just smells like shit. Like, I can't get behind a good defense. I'm a firm believer that defense wins championships. I want to be backing teams with a solid defense or upside at defense, like the Lions kind of have. They kind of have some upside, some room to get better. They look like they're taking the right steps. Doesn't look like that for the Falcons, as they really did nothing for their defense. So for this game in the futures market, I have nothing to do with these teams. I guess if you're going to take anything, the Falcons money line, all the ATS trends that I've looked at, it looked like a money line play more than a play on the spread. And every time you get, if I can get to 2.5 and back the Falcons at 2.5, that'd be a different story. But, I'm thinking this line is going to land around, Falcons win by 3 a large percentage of time in this matchup. And when the line moves through key numbers, the value's on the road team. It's just how it is in the NFL. When it moves through the 3, when it moves through the 7, the value's not on the home team. I know that if you know me, you know I chase a lot of the steam in certain spots. This is not one of those spots, especially in the NFL. I'm not chasing steam, especially through these key numbers. So I'm not on this game. I have nothing, no action.
Nothing appeals to me at this point, but I do lean towards the Panthers, but not enough for me to bet it, to put my money out on them in week 1. It just does not appeal to me. The only bet I've made now is the Detroit Lions at +6. No futures, nothing. I wanted to talk everything out here. So let's move on.